Hello, I'm Tim Brackett with Good Boy Sports. Today I wanted to come on and talk about the driver shaft that I mentioned in one of my other videos that I said I would make a longer video on, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So I've been gaming this this Callaway Epic Speed driver for several years now. For probably 2 years, I used the stock shaft that came in this. And typically, when I would buy a new driver, I would just use whatever shaft came in the club. So stock, stiff, 70 gram, 65 gram, whatever happened to come in the club. I just didn't think about it that much. So one day I was at the golf club, one of my local golf clubs that I played a lot of golf at, and some guys were showing up with this new hot pink shaft and a brand new Titleist driver that they bought. I was curious. A couple of those guys had bought that particular shaft and were raving about it. Were raving about the distance they picked up and accuracy. So I was very curious about what this was all about. Turns out the name of that shaft was autoflex, AUTO flex, autoflex. And the shaft cost $800 alone. And they were putting that in a brand new Titleist head that was probably $550 or $600. So they had a significant investment in a single golf club. Something that I wasn't really down for. If I go buy a new driver, it's typically a year or two model old. I don't I don't like to spend the premium money on a brand new technology. I typically think technology doesn't jump from a year or two back. I think if you have a driver that's 10 years old, then a new driver, you're picking up a lot of technology for the money. But I would still buy a model, at least one model old, just money wise. So anyway, this AutoFlex shaft was some Korean. It's a shaft made out of Korea, and they claim it's got some secret sauce they don't talk about exactly because there's not very many standards in really true standards in the industry. They didn't really label their shaft like we're familiar with, like just a regular flex or a stiff or an extra stiff. They have their own little classifications, and there's this whole formula that you can come up with or that you can follow to decide and to figure out which autoflex shaft that you would order and that you would play. So I wasn't going to spend that kind of money. Still being curious though, I dug into it some more and I came across some club makers and some technicians who were trying to figure out what the secret sauce really was. This shaft, one of the gentlemen at the club that I played with, he let me hit his club a little bit, and I didn't really care for it. I didn't really hit it all that well, but still curious. It was definitely very flexible, very whippy, and I wasn't a huge fan of that particular feeling. So I was kind of happy about that because it meant I wasn't crazy, wild to go spend $800 on a new shaft. But I did still continue to occasionally, look it up and read about it just because I was somewhat interested. I get bored with if it gets too much in the weeds, technical wise. I want somebody to tell me based on your swing, this is what you need. So for a long time, typical and probably even now, the general idea is that I swing the club about 100 miles an hour, and sometimes I can get it up to 109 miles an hour. But in that range, I don't think anybody would ever fit me for what I've ended up with. So I saw, like I said, I saw these guys online that were club makers and technicians, and they were after trying to unwind, reverse engineer what was in this AutoFlex shaft. So they tested, frequencies and all those technical things that I don't really understand, but just following what they were talking about, they basically unwound it and decided that the shafts were in general, when you do the formula and figure out what autoflex shafts you would need, in general they were coming up with, um, probably in general they were saying 2 weight classes below what you normally would be fitted for. So I was swinging a 65 gram stiff shaft, so they recommended, to mimic that autoflex, a 45 gram shaft, kind of down 2 weight classes and also down 2 flexes. So instead of a stiff, they were talking about the equivalent for the autoflex would be, for instead of a stiff would be a senior flex. So you'd skip the regular, go all the way down to senior flex. So down 2 weight classes, down 2 flexes, in the shaft. So I didn't really, still very skeptical about that. And the general, thought too was you can't just do that with any shaft. It has to have a certain bend profile. It has to bend a certain way. So you can have a 45 gram shaft senior flex or 70 gram stiff flex, and different manufacturers or different models will flex differently. So you can have a low launch, low kick point, kick point, launches, all the technical stuff. So in general, they were saying that, they took this particular shaft they recommended, was that had a similar bend profile as the Autoflex. This shaft is the Grapholoy Pro Launch Blue. It's 45 grams, which means it's very light, and it's also senior flex. So I've gone down 2 weight classes, down 2 flexes, and for $65 from the PGA Superstore, I decided I would, that's a reasonable amount of money to spend for an experiment, basically. So I did that, bought the shaft, put the Callaway tip on it, put it in the Epic Speed that I'd already been swinging for a year or more, and almost immediately. So you would think that the senior flex shaft would feel super whippy, like you were swinging a garden hose or something. But even though I could tell it was more flexible, I didn't have it wasn't some wild abnormal feeling about it. But after a couple of swings, I it literally did not take long. A couple of swings on the range, and I was already feeling this setup. I was really liking it, and was anxious to get out on the course. So now we're basically at least 2 years, if not 3 years later, in this same setup, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. Like, even some of the new drivers that are out that I would love to try out, I just can't imagine that I'm going to hit any of those any better than what I hit this. Now, I can have an off day and lose a few balls off the tee, but in general, I, I'm keeping this in play, and it's as long or longer than anything I've ever played, even at 55 years old. So it's been an interesting journey, and even to the point of when I bought, this would be my newest club, my 5 wood. Even when I bought that, I had to go back and reread, what the characteristics of this shaft was. So low launch, I think it was, and lighter shaft. So I tried to mimic that. I couldn't get this pro launch shaft to go in a 5 wood. So when I ordered this from the Strixon website, I found the most comparable shaft with the characteristics similar to this that I could find, and I have absolutely loved this 5 wood. When I swing it reasonably, like anybody else, occasionally I can go after things and it doesn't end up very good, if I try to swing out of my shoes. But if I'm swinging good, swinging reasonably, I can really get that, 5 wood moving out there too. So, I've hit it as much as 270 yards is probably my longest shot with that. Not that I'm trying to be long with it. actually was just very relaxed, tried to make a good smooth pass at it, and hit it, measured it 270 yards. Now, a lot of people talk about yardages and how far they hit their club, and maybe they're looking at the card and doing the math based on what their distance and stuff like that is. So I want to make sure you guys know that I'm not just guessing at some of these yardages. I feel pretty comfortable, when I tell you that I hit this club normally this far. I know that because too, and this will be a different video. I bought this watch probably a year ago. It's the Garmin S70, and it knows from the time I strike a ball, it will measure my distance between each ball. So when I get to the next ball, the very top of this watch shows me the number, shows me the yardage that I'm at from where I hit last. And for, gosh, it's not been a year, but for almost a year, many months now since I bought this watch, it has never failed or had a misread on when I actually struck a ball. I can sit in there and take practice swings, and it doesn't ever register until I hit a golf ball, and then it'll start counting my yardage. So those are yardages that come directly off the GPS. So I feel confident that those are accurate yardages. I'm going to talk about this watch on another video. I'll do a review. And by the way, I'm not paid by Grafalloy or Callaway or anybody at this point. So any of the reviews I give are completely unbiased. This is what's in my bag. This is what I play all the time. If it wasn't working, then it wouldn't be in my bag. So again, I'm not paid by anybody. Just trying to pass along some information to fellow golf nerds. So that's what I wanted to come on and talk about today. If you guys decide to try this, I would love to hear what your results are. If you go read about it and do this $65 experiment, might be $70 now. I don't know. Depends on pricing, right? But if you try this, I would love to hear about it. So message me on my channel or send me email. I am tim@goodboysports.com. Or certainly you can just comment or message me through my channel or through my Facebook page. So real interested to hear about that. You guys go try it and have fun out there on the golf course and try and experiment with new things. I'll see you next time. Thanks.